My husband called me just the babysitter, 20 minutes before his son walked across the stage to receive his high school diploma. He said it in front of 300 people. That was the part I remember most. Not the laughter from the man standing beside him, not the way his ex-wife lowered her eyes into her champagne cup to hide a smile. Not even the way Owen stood 10 feet away in his blue graduation gown and went completely still. It was the ease in Daniel's voice. Laura was never really his mother, he said. She was more like the babysitter who stuck around. A few people laughed because Daniel Bennett was the kind of man people laughed with before deciding whether anything was funny. I did not correct him. I did not ask how a babysitter ended up sitting beside a 7-year-old boy's hospital bed for 9 nights while his father answered business calls in the hallway. I did not ask how a babysitter learned to recognize the difference between a child refusing to read and a child terrified that the letters would move before he reached the end of the sentence. I did not ask how a babysitter paid for tutoring, packed 12 years of lunches, signed permission slips, waited outside therapy appointments, and stayed awake until 2 in the morning helping him finish a college essay he was too afraid to submit. I only looked at Daniel. Then I looked at Owen, and something inside me went quiet, not broken, not empty, quiet in the way a courtroom becomes quiet when the final document is placed on the table and everyone understands the truth has already arrived. Daniel mistook my silence for humiliation. He smiled, placed one hand against the back of his ex-wife's chair, and turned toward the photographer near the school banner. What he did not know was that Principal Alvarez had already changed the graduation program. He did not know there was a second announcement folded beneath the notes on her podium. And he had no idea that before the afternoon was over, she would read my full name into a microphone in front of every person he had just invited to laugh at me. My name is Laura Bennett. I am 45 years old, and for 15 years I believed I was building a family. I met Daniel when I was 30 and working as a reading specialist at Hawthorne Elementary outside Columbus, Ohio. I loved that job, with the kind of love that did not need anyone to notice it. I loved the smell of library books and dry erase markers. I loved the moment a child stopped guessing and finally understood the word in front of them. There is a particular expression children wear when they have spent years believing they are not smart and suddenly discover the problem was never intelligence. Nobody had taught them in the way they needed to learn. That expression was the reason I noticed Owen before I noticed his father. He was 4 years old the first time I saw him, sitting alone beneath a paper tree at a school literacy fair. He held a picture book upside down and stared at it with the serious expression of a child who had already learned that adults were unreliable. I sat beside him and asked what he was reading. "Nothing," he said. "Books don't like me." I remember that sentence because it was the first thing Owen ever trusted me with. Not his favorite color, not his name, his shame. I told him books did not get to decide who they liked. He studied my face for a long moment, then handed me the book. Daniel found us 20 minutes later sitting cross-legged on the cafeteria floor while I read the same page for the 4th time because Owen kept asking what happened to the dog after the picture ended. Daniel was 33 then, recently divorced and trying to build a commercial property company from 2 rented rooms above a dentist's office. His first wife, Vanessa, had left the year before. She moved to Arizona with a man she met at a fitness conference and had not seen Owen in nearly 10 months. Daniel told me she had never been ready to become a mother. I believed him. That was the beginning of most things in our marriage. Daniel spoke, and I believed him. We started dating slowly. Coffee after school events, Sunday afternoons at the park, dinner on nights when his mother could watch Owen. The first time Owen reached for my hand, he was 5. He did it without looking at me, slipping his small fingers into mine while we waited to cross a street. Trust from a child never arrives all at once. It comes quietly, one hand at a time. Daniel proposed 18 months later in my apartment kitchen while a pot of pasta boiled over behind him. He held out a ring and told me Owen slept better when I was around. At 31, I heard that as love. Looking back now, I think it was the first time Daniel told me exactly what role he wanted me to play. I just did not understand the language yet. 3 months after our wedding, Owen called me Mom by accident. He had spilled orange juice across his homework and shouted the word before he had time to stop himself. Then he froze. His face went red. I did not make it important. That was the only reason it became important. I handed him a towel and told him we needed to rescue the multiplication problems before the juice reached number 10. He called me Laura again for almost a year. Then one morning, without ceremony, I was Mom. Daniel heard it. He smiled. He never told Owen not to say it. He also never told anyone else that Owen did. When Owen was 7, Vanessa promised to visit for his birthday. He waited by the front window until dark. Daniel told him her flight had been canceled. I found the email later. She had never booked one. That night, Owen had his first serious asthma attack. Daniel was at a client dinner and did not answer his phone. I drove to the emergency room with one hand on the steering wheel and the other reaching backward between the seats because Owen kept saying he could not feel his fingers. I sat beside his hospital bed until morning, counting the seconds between every rise of his chest. Daniel arrived at 7:30 wearing the same shirt from the night before. He kissed Owen's forehead, thanked me for handling everything, and took a business call in the hallway. I told myself that was partnership. One person carried the weight when the other could not. I did not yet understand the difference between carrying weight together and becoming the floor someone expects to stand on. Owen's reading problems became impossible to ignore in 2nd grade. He could explain complicated ideas out loud, but could not copy 3 sentences from the board without losing his place. He memorized stories so teachers would think he was reading them. He learned to make jokes before anyone else could make one about him. The school called it lack of effort. Daniel called it a phase. I knew better. I paid for the evaluation myself. Dyslexia. Attention processing difficulties. A child with above-average intelligence who had spent years believing he was lazy. The specialist explained that progress would require consistency, structured intervention, daily practice, and patience. Daniel looked up from his phone and asked how long it would take to fix. Children are not broken appliances. There is no estimated repair time printed on the side of the box. I reduced my hours at Hawthorne that fall. 3 afternoons a week became 4. Then Daniel's company expanded, and there were more meetings, more inspections, more client dinners, more reasons he could not be home. By the time Owen entered middle school, I had left my job entirely. Daniel called it a family decision. It was not. A family decision is discussed. It asks what the sacrifice will cost both people. Daniel simply placed his hand over mine one night and said Owen needed me more than a classroom full of other people's children did. I looked at the boy across the table, pretending not to listen, and I stayed. Daniel climbed. Bennett Development became Bennett Property Group. 2 rented rooms became a glass office building with his name across the lobby wall. The old pickup truck became a black Mercedes. Daniel learned to speak at charity dinners. He learned where to stand in photographs. He learned how to tell the story of being a single father who built a business while raising a son. I appeared near the end of that story. Then I met Laura, he would say with a modest smile. She helped out with Owen. Helped out. 2 words for 15 years. I heard them at company dinners, neighborhood parties, and once during an interview with a local business magazine. I never corrected him. At first because I did not need the credit. Later because correcting him would have meant admitting how much it hurt not to receive it. Vanessa returned to Ohio 6 months before graduation. She said she wanted to reconnect with Owen before he left for college. Daniel invited her to dinner without asking him. She arrived carrying a bottle of wine, a silver watch, and the expression of someone returning to a role she assumed had been kept open. She hugged Daniel first, then Owen. Then she turned to me and said, "You must be Laura," as though we had not lived on opposite sides of the same child's history for 15 years. Owen was polite, too polite. She asked whether he still played baseball. He had stopped at 11. She asked where he wanted to attend college. He had already been accepted to 3 schools. I watched her learn her son one answer at a time. After dinner, she gave him the watch. The inscription read, "For all the time we lost." Owen thanked her and placed it back in the box. Later, I found him sitting on the laundry room floor. He asked whether it was wrong that he did not miss her. I told him feelings were not moral decisions, they were information. Daniel heard me from the hallway. The next morning, he accused me of turning Owen against his mother. I asked what I had said. Daniel told me it was not the words, it was my influence. He depends on you too much, he said. You made yourself necessary. I almost laughed. I had spent 15 years becoming necessary because he repeatedly asked me to. Now that Vanessa had returned, necessity had become something shameful. From that day forward, the shape of our family changed. Vanessa appeared at Sunday brunches, college meetings, the senior awards banquet, and the graduation suit fitting. Daniel added her to family photographs and placed me near the edge. When people commented on how wonderful it was to see the family reunited, he never corrected them. I noticed. I want to be honest about that. I noticed every time. I noticed when Daniel referred to Vanessa as Owen's mother and then paused before explaining who I was. I noticed when he suggested the three of them take a graduation portrait together because it would mean so much to her. I noticed when the school emailed families asking how parent names should appear in the ceremony program, and Daniel forwarded the message to Vanessa but not to me. I also noticed the folder from my father's education trust disappear from our filing cabinet. The Whitmore Education Trust had paid for Owen's evaluations, tutoring, and most of his future college tuition. It also funded a reading intervention room at Westfield High. Daniel knew about the trust. He knew it came from my father. He knew he had no authority over it. 3 weeks before graduation, our financial advisor called and asked whether I had approved Daniel's request to move the trust into a new family investment fund. I had not. I asked him to send me every document Daniel had submitted. Then I did something I had never done in 15 years of marriage. I said nothing to my husband. Graduation morning arrived bright and hot. Owen ate cereal at the kitchen counter while I steamed his gown in the guest bathroom. Daniel came downstairs wearing a new navy suit. Vanessa arrived 15 minutes later in a cream dress, carrying a camera and a second tie for Owen. Daniel told him to wear hers because it would photograph better. Owen looked at me. I asked which tie felt more like him. He chose the one we had bought together. Daniel's mouth tightened. At the school, Vanessa took the seat beside Daniel. His mother sat on the other side. The fourth chair held Vanessa's handbag. Daniel pointed to the row behind them and told me there was room. I stood there for 1 moment, then I sat behind them. 20 minutes later, a man from Daniel's company asked Vanessa whether she was Owen's mother. She smiled and said yes. The man turned to me, confused. Before I could answer, Daniel laughed. Laura was never really his mother, he said. She was more like the babysitter who stuck around. Owen heard him. His face changed. I wanted to go to him. I did not. Something in his expression told me not to rescue him from that moment. Not this time. Principal Elena Alvarez stepped onto the stage and adjusted the microphone. The room settled. Programs folded. Phones lifted. Daniel leaned toward Vanessa and whispered something that made her smile. I sat behind them with my hands resting in my lap. Principal Alvarez welcomed the families and thanked the faculty. Then she moved the printed graduation program aside. There has been a change to this afternoon's ceremony, she said. Daniel stopped whispering. Principal Alvarez unfolded a second sheet of paper. For the past 4 years, Westfield High School has been quietly supported by an anonymous donor whose contributions transformed our reading intervention program, funded specialized testing, and created the learning center many of today's graduates use to reach this stage. A murmur moved through the auditorium. I felt Daniel's shoulders stiffen in front of me. Until this morning, Principal Alvarez continued, that donor asked to remain unnamed. But one member of the graduating class submitted a request that changed her mind. Owen stood near the stage with the other graduates. He was looking directly at me. Principal Alvarez lowered her eyes to the page. This student wrote that people often praise the person standing at the finish line while forgetting the person who walked beside them through every mile no one else saw. The auditorium went completely still. Then Principal Alvarez read my full name. Laura Whitmore Bennett. My maiden name traveled through the auditorium before my married one did. Not Daniel's wife, not the woman who helped out, not the babysitter who stuck around. Laura Whitmore Bennett. The applause began in the faculty section. A few teachers stood, then parents, then students near the back. Within seconds, nearly the entire auditorium was on its feet. I remained seated. I had known Principal Alvarez planned to reveal the donation. She called me the afternoon before and read Owen's request over the phone. What I had not known was that the senior class had voted to name the learning center after my father. Principal Alvarez lifted a framed certificate from beneath the podium. The Thomas Whitmore Literacy and Learning Center exists because Mrs. Bennett understood something our schools too often forget, she said. A child who struggles to read does not need to be told to try harder. He needs someone willing to find out why trying has not been enough. My father's name appeared in dark blue letters across the glass. I felt my throat close. Thomas Whitmore spent 34 years teaching history at a public high school. He believed children usually became what the adults around them expected them to become. When he died, he left me enough money to change one child's future. I used it to change more than one. Daniel had called the donations sentimental. He had never asked how much remained in the trust, not until his company began having problems. Principal Alvarez looked toward me. Mrs. Bennett, would you please join us on stage? I stood. Daniel turned around. His expression was not anger yet. It was confusion. The particular confusion of a man who believes nothing important can happen in a room unless he arranged it. The walk to the stage took less than 30 seconds. I remember every step, the heat from the overhead lights, the sound of programs moving in people's hands, the way Vanessa lifted her purse from the empty seat beside her as though she suddenly understood what that chair had represented. When I reached the stage, Owen stepped out of line. He was not supposed to. Principal Alvarez glanced toward the ceremony coordinator, then looked away. Owen wrapped both arms around me. He was 18 and nearly a full head taller than I was, but for one brief moment I felt the weight of the 4-year-old boy who had once handed me a picture book and told me books did not like him. He leaned close enough that only I could hear. You were never the babysitter. I closed my eyes. I had spent 15 years teaching him that words were not things to fear. And in that moment, I had none. Principal Alvarez handed me the framed certificate. Then she reached beneath the podium again and removed a sealed envelope. Daniel's name was written across the front. Mr. Bennett, she said. The applause faded. Daniel stood slowly. He walked toward the stage wearing the composed half-smile he used whenever something unexpected happened in public. He accepted the envelope without opening it. He thanked Principal Alvarez. He nodded at me like a businessman acknowledging another person after a transaction he did not yet understand. Then he returned to his seat and placed the envelope beneath his program. The ceremony continued. When Owen's name was called, Principal Alvarez did not read it the way it appeared in the printed booklet. She read the version he had submitted that morning. Owen Thomas Whitmore Bennett. Daniel's head snapped toward the stage. My father's name stood between Owen's first and last names like a bridge no one had asked Daniel's permission to build. Owen accepted his diploma and looked at me before he looked at anyone else. After the ceremony, families moved onto the lawn beneath white tents. Graduates threw their caps into the air. Parents called names across the crowd. Teachers posed for photographs with students they would probably never see again. Daniel found me near the library entrance. Vanessa followed half a step behind him. He waited until 2 teachers had finished thanking me for the learning center. Then he moved closer. What exactly was that? He asked. His voice was low, controlled. A graduation ceremony. Do not do that. Do what? Pretend you do not know what I am asking. I looked at the sealed envelope still beneath his arm. I knew Principal Alvarez planned to announce the donation. I did not know about Owen's middle name or that envelope. Daniel gave a short laugh without humor. Of course you didn't. Vanessa crossed her arms. You paid for that center? She asked. Yes. With Daniel's money? The question arrived so quickly that for a moment I simply looked at her. Not because I did not understand it, because I understood too much. Daniel had told her something. My father's trust funded it, I said. Vanessa glanced at Daniel. It lasted less than a second, but I saw it. The first small exchange between two people who had expected the same fact to be different. Daniel's mouth tightened. This is not the place. You asked me here. You knew that announcement would embarrass Vanessa. I did not mention her. You made it look like you were the reason Owen graduated. No, I said. It made it clear I was one of them. Daniel stared at me. Then Owen appeared beside us. His graduation gown was unzipped now, revealing the white shirt underneath. He stood next to me. Not his father, Daniel noticed. He held out the envelope. What did you put in this? I told you. I did not know it existed, Owen answered. I did. Daniel looked at him. What is it? A letter. About what? Open it. Daniel tore the envelope carefully along the top. There were several pages inside. The first was handwritten. The others were copies of financial documents. I recognized the heading on the first page before Daniel could hide it. Bennett Family Opportunity Fund. The same fund our financial advisor had mentioned 3 weeks earlier. Except this copy contained something I had never seen. Owen's name. A transfer authorization, and beneath the line marked trustee approval was my signature. I knew immediately it was false. I had never signed anything called the Bennett Family Opportunity Fund. What is that? I asked. Daniel lowered the pages. Nothing. That is my signature. It is a draft. A draft with my signature? His eyes moved toward the families around us. Keep your voice down. I had not raised it. Daniel often told me to calm down before I displayed any emotion at all. It allowed him to treat my existence as escalation. Vanessa reached for the pages. He pulled them away from her. Her face changed. You told me she agreed. There it was. Not a confession, not yet, but the first visible crack in the story they had built together. Agreed to what? I asked. Neither of them answered. Owen did. To move the trust. Daniel turned toward him. This is an adult conversation. I am 18, since this morning, and those papers have my name on them. Daniel forced his expression to soften. Owen, this is not what you think. I heard you. The air between them changed. Owen removed his phone from the inside pocket of his gown. 2 weeks ago, you and Vanessa were in your office. You thought I had left for rehearsal. Vanessa went pale. Daniel looked at her, then back at Owen. You recorded a private conversation? I recorded you talking about my college money. It is not your money yet. The words came out too quickly. Too honestly. Daniel heard them at the same time the rest of us did. He adjusted. The trust exists for your education. I was discussing how to protect it. By moving it into your company? That is not what the fund does. You said Bennett Property Group needed cash before the quarter closed. Daniel stepped closer. That is a financial term you do not understand. I understand you told Vanessa there would be enough money left to give her a job. Vanessa looked at Daniel. You said he did not know about that. Stop talking, Daniel said. He did not say it loudly. He did not need to. The sentence carried the authority of a man accustomed to deciding when other people were allowed to contribute to the truth. Vanessa stared at him. Then she looked at me. What job? I asked. She hesitated. Daniel gave the smallest shake of his head. It was not enough to stop her. Director of Community Relations, she said. For what? The new family office. We do not have a family office. He said you were creating one after graduation. He said the trust would be combined with the company's investment accounts. How much did he promise you? Vanessa looked down. $120,000 a year. Owen made a sound beside me. Not quite a laugh. Not quite disbelief. Daniel stepped between us. I said we would discuss compensation if the structure moved forward. You said it was guaranteed, Vanessa replied. You misunderstood. Her face changed at the word. I recognized the expression because I had worn it many times. The moment a person realizes the explanation being used against her is the same one used against everyone else. My phone rang inside my purse. Miriam Cole. She had administered my father's trust for more than 20 years. I answered. Laura, she said without greeting. Are you with Daniel? Yes. Do not let him leave with those documents. They are copies. Good. I need you to listen carefully. The forged signature is not the only problem. I turned away from Daniel. What else? The agreement references a capital commitment letter issued by the Whitmore Trust 6 months ago. I never issued one. I know. My grip tightened around the phone. Daniel used that letter to secure a bridge loan for Bennett Property Group. The lawn seemed to tilt beneath me. How much? Miriam paused. Lawyers pause when they are about to give a number large enough to rearrange the room. $2.4 million. I looked at Daniel. He knew from my face that the last locked door had opened. When is it due? I asked. Monday. Graduation was Saturday. 2 days. What happens Monday? If the company cannot repay the loan or prove the trust commitment is valid, the lender can accelerate every related obligation. What related obligations? The corporate credit line, 2 development loans, and a personal guarantee secured against the Bennett residence. I stopped breathing. Our house? Yes, I never signed a personal guarantee. Another pause, shorter this time. That is why I need you and Owen at my office immediately. I ended the call. Daniel stood less than 3 feet away. What did she say? You know, Laura, $2.4 million. Vanessa looked between us. Owen went still. Daniel did not deny the number. That was how I knew it was true. It is a short-term arrangement, he said. The company has receivables closing next month. Then why did you need my trust? To satisfy a technical requirement. With a forged signature. I did not forge anything. Then who did? Daniel said nothing. The facts did not need my anger attached to them. They were already heavy enough. We are going to Miriam's office, I said. Daniel moved half a step into my path. Not enough to look threatening to anyone watching, enough to remind me that he was taller. You are not taking my son to an attorney behind my back, Owen answered before I could. I asked for the meeting. You do not understand what is at stake. I understand you tried to use Mom's money. Daniel's face changed at the word. Mom. Not Laura. Not his wife. Not the babysitter. Vanessa is your mother, he said. Owen did not look at her. Vanessa gave birth to me. The sentence landed between them. Vanessa flinched. Owen continued. Laura raised me. She was there every day. You do not get to change that because it photographs better now. Daniel opened his mouth. No words came. Principal Alvarez began walking toward us from across the lawn. A school board member followed beside her. Daniel saw them coming and stepped out of my path. Control returned to his face as quickly as a light turning on. He adjusted his jacket. We will discuss this at home, he said. It sounded like a threat delivered in the language of marriage. Then he turned and walked toward the parking lot. Vanessa did not follow him. She stood beneath the white tent with her arms wrapped around herself while the man who had promised to restore her place in the family left without checking whether she was behind him. Owen took my hand, the same way he had when he was 5 years old, only this time he was not asking whether I would stay. He was telling me he would. Miriam's office occupied the top floor of an old brick building downtown. She was waiting when we arrived. So was a forensic accountant named Priya Shah. On the conference table were copies of the transfer agreement, the trust records, and a personal guarantee tied to our house. My false signature appeared on all 3. It was close enough to fool someone who had never watched me sign my name. The first letter curved correctly. The final line tilted upward, but the pressure was wrong. My real signature began hard and ended quickly. This one had been drawn with equal care from beginning to end. It looked studied, practiced, dead. Where did Owen find the transfer papers? Miriam asked. In Dad's desk, he said. I heard him tell Vanessa I would sign after graduation. What did he tell you the document was? A college authorization. Miriam turned to page 4. Buried beneath several paragraphs of financial language was a clause granting Daniel control over distributions from the education trust. If Owen signed, Daniel could present the document as proof that the beneficiary approved the transfer. My forged signature would provide the trustee approval. Together, They would make the transaction look voluntary. "How much is left in the trust?" Owen asked. I had never told him the exact amount. I wanted him to choose a future based on what he wanted to build, not on what he expected to inherit. Miriam looked at me. I nodded. "Just over $1 million, she said. Owen leaned back. For a moment, the number seemed to frighten him more than the fraud. "I do not need that much for college." "No," I said. "You do not." The remaining money was never meant to become his private fortune. After his education, it would support reading evaluations and intervention programs for children whose families could not afford them. Daniel knew the trust was substantial. He did not know its full purpose, or at least I had believed he did not. Priya opened a folder. "Bennett Property Group has been in financial trouble for more than a year," she said. "2 projects went over budget. A third lost its main tenant. Daniel covered the losses with short-term loans." "How much does the company owe?" I asked. "Nearly $5 million. I thought about the new office. The magazine article. The charity dinner where Daniel stood beneath a banner, describing him as one of the region's most successful developers. The success had not hidden the debt. It had been built from it. The bridge lender required proof that the company could access additional capital," Priya continued. Daniel submitted a letter claiming the Whitmore Trust had committed $1.5 million. The trust does not hold that much now. It did when the letter was dated. She pushed another document toward me. 14 months earlier. This had not begun when Vanessa returned. It had not begun when Daniel asked Owen to sign papers. It had been planned for more than a year. "How did he know the balance?" I asked. Priya showed me a series of access records. An assistant at our financial advisory office had downloaded confidential trust statements several times. Her name was Caroline Pierce. She had resigned 1 month earlier. Her new employer was Bennett Property Group. Daniel had given her the title of Director of Strategic Finance. He had not guessed what my father left me. He had purchased access to the answer. Miriam placed the personal guarantee in front of me. The document listed Daniel and me as guarantors on the company loan. Our address was correct. The value of the house was correct. My employment was not. It described me as a managing member of Bennett Property Group. I had never worked for the company. The final page contained another false signature beneath the seal of Daniel's executive assistant, Melissa Crane. Melissa had notarized a document I had never seen. "How many people knew?" I asked. Nobody answered immediately. That silence told me enough. Miriam gave me a sworn statement confirming that I had never authorized the trust commitment, the transfer agreement, or the guarantee. I read every page. For 15 years, Daniel had placed documents in front of me and pointed to the line where he wanted my name. Routine. Nothing to worry about. Sign here. I was done signing anything I had not read. When I reached the final page, I wrote my name slowly. Laura Whitmore Bennett. The real signature looked almost untidy beside the copies. Alive, uneven, mine. Miriam sent the statement to the lender and requested an emergency meeting with the independent member of Daniel's board. We met that evening. Daniel arrived 12 minutes late in the same navy suit he had worn to graduation. His tie was loose now. He entered the conference room expecting to see one lawyer. Instead, he found Miriam, Priya, the lender's attorney, and Richard Sloan, the retired banker Daniel had placed on his board, because respected names made lenders comfortable. Copies of my forged signatures filled the screen behind them. Daniel stopped at the door. "What is this?" Richard did not ask him to sit. "An emergency board meeting." Daniel looked at me. The anger came before the fear. "You brought company business to my son's graduation." "No," I said. "You brought company fraud into our family." He sat. His movements became careful, controlled. A man arranging the visible parts of himself while everything beneath them began to collapse. "The trust agreement was preliminary," he said. "It was never meant to become final without family approval. The lender received it as executed," Richard replied. "The company has assets." "Then why did you claim Laura's trust had committed $1.5 million? Daniel looked at me instead of answering. "We discussed helping the business." No, I said. You told me one project was running late. You understood the company needed support. I understood the sentence you chose to give me. His jaw tightened. You are making this sound calculated. Priya turned her laptop toward him. The timeline makes it look calculated. She showed him Caroline's access records, then emails connecting the false commitment letter to the bridge loan. Then a statement from Melissa. Daniel had brought her the personal guarantee already signed. He told her I had signed it at home. He ordered her to record that I had appeared in person. Melissa is protecting herself, Daniel said. She surrendered her notary journal, the lender's attorney replied. Daniel looked toward the door. Richard noticed. You may leave, he said. The board will continue without you. Daniel stayed. Of course he did. Men like Daniel rarely leave rooms they still believe they can control. The company was weeks away from recovering, he said. The loan was temporary. You moved restricted money between projects, Richard said. I moved it until receivables cleared. They did not clear. They will. Not before Monday. Daniel leaned forward. If Laura challenges the commitment, she could destroy the company. There it was. Not I forged her name. Not I pledged her house. She could destroy the company. If the company survives only because of a false signature, I said, I am not the reason it is failing. He looked at me with open anger. I built everything we have. You built a business, I said. I built the family you kept using to prove you were trustworthy. The room went quiet. Richard placed a board resolution on the table. Effective immediately, I am moving to suspend Daniel Bennett as Chief Executive Officer, pending a full investigation. Daniel stared at him. You cannot do that. The board can. I own the company. Your shares are pledged under the loan agreement. The fraud notice triggered a default. Daniel reached for his phone. Priya spoke before he touched it. Your company access has already been disabled. He looked at the screen anyway. No email, no banking access, no internal files. The company Daniel had spent 20 years building had closed its doors to him in less than an hour. You planned this, he said to me. I learned about the loan this afternoon. You have been waiting for a reason to take everything. I looked at the documents on the screen. My name copied onto his debt. My father's trust turned into company capital. Our house offered as collateral. I do not want your company. I said, I want my name removed from your lies. Richard called for the vote. Daniel was suspended. A restructuring firm took control of the company's accounts. The lender froze all new borrowing. The forged documents were referred to federal investigators. Daniel did not look at Richard. He looked only at me. What are you going to tell people? That question told me everything. Not what happens to us. Not what happens to Owen. What will people think? The truth, I said. You will ruin Owen's name. Owen stood beside me. It is my name. Daniel's face softened. Owen, come home with me. No. One bad decision does not erase everything. This was not one decision. You do not understand adult pressure. I understand you forged her signature. I did not. Then tell us who did. Daniel said nothing. Owen nodded once. That is what I thought. We left him in the conference room with the board, the lender, and every document he had believed would save him. The company survived. That mattered to me. 2 projects were sold. A third was restructured. Employees continued receiving paychecks. Daniel's control did not survive with it. Caroline cooperated with investigators. Melissa surrendered her notary commission. The personal guarantee against our house was declared invalid. My father's trust remained untouched. Daniel moved into a hotel and called me every day for the first week. The messages changed in the order defenses usually change when the truth refuses to move. First came anger, then explanation, then blame, finally fear. Please tell them I never meant to hurt you. I saved the message, not because I wanted revenge, because Daniel had taught me the danger of allowing memory to become the only witness. Our divorce took 10 months. He claimed the trust should count as marital property. The court rejected it. He claimed the house should be sold to cover business debts. The forged guarantee prevented that. He eventually pleaded guilty to making false statements to a lender and using fraudulent financial documents. At sentencing, he said he had acted to protect his employees. The judge asked why protecting employees required copying his wife's signature. Daniel had no answer. Owen left for college that fall. The trust paid his tuition directly. The rest remained where my father intended it to remain. The Thomas Whitmore Literacy and Learning Center opened officially in September. Principal Alvarez asked me to cut the ribbon. I declined. Instead, a 7th-grade girl named Maya stood in front of it with a pair of oversized scissors. Afterward, she read a paragraph into the microphone. Slowly, carefully, without apologizing once, I stood in the back of the room, not invisible, not on display, present. There is a difference. A year later, Owen came home for the opening of a second learning center. A reporter approached us and asked whether I was the founder. Before I could answer, Owen smiled. "This is my mom," he said. "She built the reason this place exists." No auditorium, no applause, no principal reading my name, just a young man telling the truth in an ordinary room. That was the moment that mattered most. I once believed another person could erase you. They can leave your name out of the story. They can move your chair. They can take credit for your labor. They can introduce you as less than you were and repeat the lie until everyone begins to accept it. But erasure is not complete until you begin participating in it. Until silence becomes the price you pay to remain included. I paid that price for 15 years. At my son's graduation, Daniel called me the babysitter who stuck around. He believed the sentence would place me outside the family. Instead, it became the last lie he told before the truth began reading itself aloud.